I'm standing in the middle of Waulud's Bank, which is a remnant of a Neolithic monument, sometimes referred to as a henge, but you might have thought of a henge as something like Stonehenge, with massive stone arising from the centre of the earthwork, and we don't have that here. So henge isn't quite the right terminology for this. It's more of a D-shaped enclosure created in the Neolithic. And what it was used for, we're not exactly sure, but it does date to about 6,000 years in the past. People would have come here from a long way away to put a lot of effort into building earthwork banks with a large ditch on the outside, ostensibly for enclosing a space for some particular purpose, possibly for funeral activities. We know not for settlement, because there's been some research that shows there's no buildings in here. But probably the main focus of enclosing this space will have been for some intangible ritual or spiritual activity, and that must have focused on the source of the Lea. This D-shaped enclosure basically shuts off the springs that are the source of the Lea from the outside world. Although Waulud's Bank now just seems like a small little bump enclosing a grassy field with some trees on the edge, what it would have probably looked like in its heyday would be a really tall earthwork bank that was created by digging a very deep ditch and throwing those arisings up over it to create the bank. This would have been done, as I say, 6,000 years ago, so we're not talking about metal tools, we're talking about it all being dug out by antler picks and the soil being scooped into baskets and those baskets being dumped into these tall heaps. So you would have seen a bank that was much higher than it is now, even though it is still described by these trees growing along it. A much higher bank, much deeper ditch, and that's to basically shut this space off from the rest of the world. It would have taken a lot of effort. But we can't say whether it was done by 30 people over 10 years or by 3,000 people over a week. It's one of those things that is really difficult in prehistory to tell. But it does represent a real investment of human activity, of human labour and time to create this space. Humans and waterways are inextricably linked. There's an attraction to people coming to water. We're drawn to it, whether for pragmatic reasons, because we want to use the river for our own purposes, or because just being near water makes us feel good. With this vegetation behind me, you can almost imagine a Mesolithic hunter-gatherer popping out from under the bushes and stalking game. You would have found a much different water quality, of course, between the Mesolithic and now. But that relationship between humans and the water is a fractious one sometimes, with humans perhaps benefiting more than the river. And that's something that could potentially be something we'd want to change in the future.